You were crushed in a mob of people. And it was terrifying because with Finley, he's so little. I was like, you cannot let go of my hand. You could get sucked up by this mob of people and I would never find you. I mean, at least with Jasper, he was in a stroller. But oh my gosh, it was just crazy how mobbed it was with people. And I don't really understand why it was like that because no other street was like that. But I guess that's a thing there. Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashleigh, and I live at the threshold. Between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. Hello. Welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I'm coming in hot once again from my hotel room in Portland, Oregon. I'm here at Spirit Northwest. You guys, this has been the most incredibly wonderful conference, getting to meet so many magical people, so many, I've gotten to meet 3 former podcast guests. Sarah from Green Moon Witchery, she was on talking about her tarot soaps. I met Samantha Rose Hicks, who came on with her, and she came on to the podcast talking about her book, Talking with the Tarot. And then I've also been able to spend a bunch of time with Jenny C. Bell, who was on in the past talking about her book, Spirit Crystals. And so it's just been so incredible. I got to meet Madame Pamita today, who is a very, very famous person in the witchy community. And then I also got to meet Ivo Dominguez Jr. yesterday. And everybody here has been so lovely, so warm, so accepting. You have the widest range of magical practitioners here, people that are new to practice, people that are very experienced, that have been doing this for, 30, 40 years. So it's really, really fun. And just everybody's so kind and lovely. And, I would just highly recommend this conference if you have never been to a witchy conference before and you want to kind of dip your toe in and see. This would be a wonderful one. I think it's probably around the same time next year in April. But gosh, it's just been so fun. Honestly, at the end of the day, I'm just so drained because it's just like you're getting there's so many amazing presentations. There's so many wonderful people to chat with. It's a lot. But the reason that I'm here recording right now is because when you listen to this, it will officially be May. And May is the month that I have decided to chat about travel as a liminal space. And I have been sitting on recording this episode for a while because I thought I've been trying to put this episode together in different ways. And then finally I said to myself, why am I overthinking this? I just need to hit record and share with you all about our trip to the Philippines and Japan. And it was such a trip. I wanted to put this together and talk about all these different things and format in a different way. And I thought to myself, I'm just complicating it too much. I'm just going to hit record. So this whole month, I'm going to be talking about just travel as a liminal space. And even as I record right now, I'm in a hotel room. A hotel room would be considered a liminal space. It's not, it's where I'm staying right now, but it's not my home. But it kind of feels like a home. It's a temporary home. And flying, airplanes, airports, these are all liminal spaces too. And liminal spaces are often places where we're very receptive to magical things happening to us. And I feel like, especially on this trip, so many magical things have been happening to me personally. I've got this beautiful labradorite pendant that I bought from one of the vendors that is here. So many beautiful vendors. But I digress. You guys, it's going to be hard for me to stay on track because I'm a little bit sleepy. But I have my beautiful cup from Powell's Books. I've got my little tea diffuser here with a labradorite pendant crystal and a shirt that I got yesterday that says, "The horrors persist, but so do I." And I was like, oh, that's very timely. So let's just get into it. So about over a year ago now, we decided that we wanted to take this family trip to the Philippines. My husband is Filipino, and we had planned to go to the Philippines years ago. We were even considering taking his mother years ago, because my husband hadn't been back since before we went to PA school. So he hadn't been back there since 2007. So we were going to go, and then COVID hit, and then my husband's mother, she started declining. And so we just benched that trip. And then we decided, okay, well, 2026 is the year we're going to do it. So we started preparing for the trip a whole year in advance. And, it took a lot of effort to put this trip together, because we knew that the Philippines there's a lot of islands. There's a lot of places to visit. And we knew that there were some places that we wanted to visit. We also knew that we wanted to see his family, but we weren't really sure how much time we wanted to spend with my husband's family. And, there was a lot of logistics. Plus, we're traveling with 2 little boys. So I was like, okay, well, what are the places that we actually want to see? We settled on going into Manila, where his family is located and where my husband grew up. Then we were going to go to Cebu, which is another island. And I was very interested in the island, of course, and then seeing the whale sharks, which the island of Cebu is very famous for. And then Boracay is a very famous, gorgeous, stunning beach that everybody always talks about. And finally, the island of Palawan, which is once again a very gorgeous, stunning, famous place in the Philippines. So that's a lot of different places, but we had a month. So we decided that, yes, we were going to do it. Well, once we started researching the travel, I thought to myself, you know what? A month in the Philippines just feels like quite a long time. And my son Finley is obsessed with Japan, and he talks about going to Japan all the time. And I thought, we're all the way over there. Maybe I could just see how far it would be to fly from Manila to Tokyo. And in fact, it wasn't very far. It was like 3.5, 4 hours. So I said, okay. I told my husband, I said, you know what? Maybe we could just do the Philippines for 3 weeks, and then we could go to Tokyo for a week. And at first he would kind of, he was like, poo-poo on that. He's like, no, we really need 4 weeks in the Philippines. And I'm like, but do we really? Do we really? I mean, how often are we going to be all the way on that side of the world? When are we going to get back to going to Japan? So we decided that, as a surprise for Finley, that we would not tell him about the Japanese portion of the trip, and that he would only know about the Philippines. And then when we would go to Japan, we would surprise him at the very last moment. Okay, so for me, it's easy to keep things quiet. My husband, he tends to have a squirrel brain. And so there were many times throughout the course of planning this trip that he would spill the beans. But fortunately, our son wasn't always paying attention. So he never caught on to anything that his dad said. And he never caught on to the fact that we were also going to be going to Japan. So this trip was really for my husband. It was really a way for him to show the kids where he's from. It was kind of like a pilgrimage for him. I mean, maybe a little bit of a spiritual journey to go back to his culture, show his children where he's from, experience the culture, experience the food, the beaches. It's different for me. I didn't really grow up in a house that felt very cultural. I grew up in Nebraska. That's not a culture, that's state. Okay. So for me, we didn't have any cultural things that we did. Everything that we did was very Midwest, very white, very just traditional Midwest things. My family, there was nothing super specific that we celebrated. There were no special foods that we really ate. So for me, I don't really have those attachments like he does, right? Because in the Philippines, there's very specific meals that they prepare and very specific cultural things that they do. And I didn't grow up with that, but I'm all about embracing it. And I think it's wonderful for my children to get to experience those things. So here we go. Okay. We are going to go to the Philippines, and I knew that it was going to be a long flight there. And we decided to fly out of San Francisco and just fly overnight. So we flew out of San Francisco. We flew from San Francisco to Taipei, Taiwan. And I don't know how many hours that was. 12 hours, 13 hours, something like that. It didn't seem like it was that bad. The flight was fine. Even with the kids, it was totally fine. And then we had a layover in Taiwan, and that was fine. We could stretch and get things, get things moving in our body, get something to eat that wasn't airplane food. And then we flew on to Manila. And, like immediately stepping out of the plane and getting our luggage and trying to get a car, I was like, okay, this is already different than what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just was like, okay, we're definitely in a foreign land here, and if you've been following along for any period of time, me and my family, we travel a lot. So, I mean, it's not like we're pretty seasoned travelers. But we got to the hotel. We were recommended to stay in Makati, which is kind of like an upscale, nicer area of, Manila at large. And we stayed at a Holiday Inn, and it was attached to the Glorietta Mall. And the Glorietta Mall is just like a big famous mall in Manila, and malls are very popular in the Philippines. Okay, people love to just spend time at these malls. So, okay, great. Now, the thing that we did not really anticipate upon arrival is that we were going to have challenges with figuring out how to get around. People had told us, "Oh, you just use the Grab app, or you just use this app, you just do that." Well, we didn't realize that we needed to have set all that stuff up in the US prior to leaving on this trip. So we get there, and these apps are not really working for us, and they're not connecting to our US bank accounts because we are not in the US. And so it took us a bit of time to get all of that sorted out. We really struggled with the kids getting the time regulated. The kids were up at, 6 o'clock. Well, they weren't really sleeping at all. The kids were bouncing off the walls day and night. We would be up on the rooftop hotel pool at 6 a.m. because we're just trying to get the wiggles out, and everything there seemed very beautiful and nice and lovely and just very modern, and nothing that was specifically like cultural or Filipino. I mean, because even the breakfasts at the Holiday Inn, I mean, they had American food, but of course they did have traditional Filipino food, which is great, and it was a buffet, and it was fine, and everybody loved it. But after spending a few days there at the hotel, I said to my husband, I'm like, well, we flew all the way around the world. Why are we're just like hanging out here at this hotel? Like, aren't we going to get out, and aren't we going to go do something? Aren't we going to see anything? Aren't we going to like whatever? And he's like, okay, well, I got to figure out, how we can get around and how we can get a car, and then we'll go do something. And I was like, we're going to need to go see your family. So we did go visit some of his relatives. But he said to me, why don't we go to, and I just want to say, if you're Filipino and you're hearing this and you're from the Philippines, I am just telling you all this as someone that is an observer to all of these things. And like my mind was I don't know what I was expecting in my mind, but I was just, my eyes were widened. My eyes were opened to these experiences. So my husband picked this famous park called Luneta Park. Okay, great. I said, great, let's go to the park. Let's get the kids outside. It was really hot. And Luneta Park was not quite the kind of park that I was expecting. It was in very bad shape. It was very dirty. It was run down. There was garbage everywhere. It just was not in great shape. And I'm just like, oh, wow. And it took a long time to get there because traffic in Manila is absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I mean, and plus, like, they don't have car seats. They don't, people ride around. You see people on little mopeds weaving in and out of traffic. And there's a woman sitting on the back seat of a moped without a helmet on holding a newborn baby. I mean, my eyes were like wide. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are definitely, this is another world, right? And so we're at this park. We find this anthropology museum. I'm like, okay, let's go to the anthropology museum. This is great. We can see like the history of the culture and all the things. So we did that, and that was fine. But, it was just, this is like a big famous park. So I thought that it was going to be in good shape, but there's like crazy construction going on everywhere and just the garbage and the whole thing. And I was just like, wow, this is not quite what I was expecting, and then later on we decided to go to the home where John lived when he was young. And I had known in advance that this family home, had been a multi-level home. And, years ago, the upper levels of this house burned down. Well, now his family members, cousins, etc., and there's quite a few of them, they ended up having to convert the garage into the main home, and this upper level is still burned down. Unfortunately, we got there at nighttime. The kids were already asleep in the car, so the kids didn't get to see where their dad had lived. I mean, the downstairs where they're now living is nice and clean and it's fine. But I mean, just to imagine, you have this family of all these extended relatives. There's all these cousins and kids and stuff. They just kept coming out of these back bedrooms, and I'm like, how many people are living in this very, very tiny place? And I wanted to take a picture, but then I also felt like I couldn't, because I didn't want it to feel like I was making a spectacle of what I was seeing, because I mean, obviously this is their home, but it was just a lot to take in. And driving through, and we weren't there very long, but just driving through Manila, you go from these areas like where we're staying, which is it's so built up, it's so modern, and I was like, wow, this is great, I could live here. And then you go in the car that you rent, and you just drive into the neighborhood, and you're just like, wow, there's so many people that live like this. Like, it's shocking how the people live. I mean, they live in like huts, and there's just garbage everywhere, and it's dirty, and there's kids running around with like barely any clothes on and no shoes on, and like, where are they getting their groceries? They're just getting them from these like huts that have vegetables and like bodegas, and like it's so different. And I just kept telling my kids, please look out the window. I want you to take this in, because this is a very common way that these people live. I mean, more people live like this than don't. And it just felt to me like there was just such a strong, I mean, you go from just extreme poverty to a few blocks away, which is like lavish and luxurious and beautiful, and like you have the mall with all the Chanel and Gucci, and then just blocks away are people that live in absolute squalor and probably don't have running water and or toilets or showers or whatever. It's just this crazy, like, it's so hard to process. And I think part of me not having recorded this episode until almost a month after, yeah, basically it'll be a month tomorrow that we got back, I just needed time to process everything that I had seen. It was hard for me to even, after coming back from the travels, it was hard for me to even look at the photos, just because it just was so much to take in. And so, we had that time in Manila, and, I'm glad we did, and we got to experience that. I'm kind of like, but one of the highlights of that time is that when we were at the mall, I walked into one of the bookstores there, because you know me, I'm always going to find a bookstore everywhere I go. Everybody knows that about Mom. Oh, Mom, there's a bookstore. Are you going to go in there? Yes, I am. I really did not expect them to have any witchy books. And I walked to the back of the store, and there was a whole table set up with all these tarot decks, oracle decks, witchy books. And I was so excited, because there were Molly Donlin, who wrote the book Mundane Magic, who's been on the podcast. There was her book. I was so excited. I sent her a picture. I was like, oh my gosh, your book is in the Philippines. And then also Jen Sankey, who wrote the book Manifesting by the Moon, she's going to be coming. Well, I've already interviewed her, but her episode's going to be coming out at the end of May. Found her book. Nick Lawyer, who created the Sleepy Hollow tarot deck, his tarot deck was there. So that was really wild. And so that was just like really fun to see that these things are there in the Philippines too. So you realize how some things still are quite universal. So I really loved that. And, once we had finished our time there in Manila, I was like, okay, now I'm really ready to move on to the beach portion of our trip. So after that, we flew to Cebu, which was not too far away. Okay, I needed a quick drink of my tea. We flew to Cebu, and we were going to be staying at the Shangri-La, which is a beautiful resort. And, getting off the plane, driving through the city, it's kind of the same. It looked very similar to Manila when we got off the airplane and when we got the car to drive us to our resort. You see a lot of you just see a lot of poverty. And I was just like, wow, okay. And then we get to the resort, and I mean, it's like you almost feel guilty, right? That you're staying at this like lavish place where most people are living in these very challenging situations. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, like a lot of the people that work at these resorts, they're probably going home and living like that. But everybody was so genuinely kind and respectful and wonderful. I just couldn't get over that. Everybody in the Philippines was just absolutely wonderful, helpful, and just very lovely. Just very, very lovely, warm people. And I really, really want to say that because it really made an impression on me. Like, it made me think how I always had the opportunity to be nicer and warmer to people and more helpful. And it made a big impression. So we're staying at this gorgeous resort, and I just loved it there. They had a private beach. You could go out in the water. It was beautiful. Like, you could go out into the water a ways, and it was very beautiful in the water. I wouldn't say it was warm, but it was definitely not cold, and it felt very safe for children. They had a beautiful pool area with slides, which of course the kids liked. They had an amazing breakfast restaurant that just had like wonderful food. And one of the big things that we did during our time there in Cebu was I set up for us to do this whale shark adventure. So prior to going on this trip, I knew that I did not want to set up a lot of excursions or adventures for our family because I didn't know how people would be feeling on any certain day. I didn't know if we'd be up for it. I didn't know if the kids would be in the mood. It was going to be, I felt like, a lot to just have all this transition between hotels and different places that we were staying. So I didn't want to set up a bunch of activities. Okay, I felt like just the day-to-day would be activity enough, but the whale sharks were the one thing that I really wanted to see. So with the whale sharks, they are mostly found on the island of Cebu, down in the south, near a town called Oslob. Now, Oslob is like 3 hours from where we were staying. So we had a driver that picked us up at 3:00 in the morning and drove us through the night all the way down to Oslob. Now, it was crazy. I mean, riding in this van, looking outside, I mean, people were up like all night long alongside the road. I mean, it was just like chaos everywhere we were driving. And this man that did this drive for us, he does that drive every single day. He drives different groups from where we were staying, Mactan, Cebu, all the way down to Oslob. I mean, this is like at least 7 or 8 hours of driving a day. So we drive through the night all the way down there, and like immediately at 6 a.m., he stops the van. The van door opens. This woman, the tour guide, she's right there ready for us. She rushes us down to where they set up the whale shark experience. We had to get in line. We had to get a number. It's 6:00 in the morning. The number that we got was already at 260. They open up the tickets to get in line to go see the whale sharks at 3:00 in the morning. Okay, so she's like, well, since our number is already at 260, I'm going to take you to get breakfast. Then we're going to go to this sandbar, and then we're going to come back and do the whale shark experience. So, I mean, it was crazy, and it was so chaotic there. And, there's all these stray animals everywhere, and it's dirty, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it was sensory freaking overload. It was sensory overload. And so she took us to this restaurant where they gave us like a breakfast, which was like basically a piece of white bread with one overly cooked egg. And Then we went to this sandbar and rode this boat, and then we came back, and then by that time it was time for us to do the whale shark experience, and they get us all set up with the life vest, and even little Jasper was able to go on the boat and go out and see the whale sharks. And then we go out on this boat and we have like a 30-minute experience seeing the whale sharks, and you can't get, I mean, you get pretty close to them, but you can't touch them, of course, but you're pretty close. And then you come back, and then they shuffle you over to somewhere to have lunch really quick, and then you do the 4-hour drive all the way back to the resort. And it was during this time going back to the resort where I started talking to the driver all about Filipino folklore and all the different things that I'd heard about. And then he started sharing all about different types of Filipino folklore that he was aware of. And so then I started kind of like doing a deep dive on all of this. And I was like, oh my gosh, the Filipinos have such incredible folklore. I would love to do a podcast episode about this because it's so magical. It's very magical folklore with witches and basically, what would I want to call them? Entities that are kind of like fairies or like elves. And so that was really fascinating. And, we get back to the hotel and it was just such a long day. And I was just like, wow, that was a lot. That was a crazy day. So the next day, we were supposed to just have like a chill day at the resort. And the following day, like 2 days after the whale shark experience, we were supposed to do another big day experience where we took like a ferry boat to the island of Bohol and saw the chocolate hills and the tarsiers and all these things. And I was like, you know what? We need to pump the brakes on that because I don't want to go through all that. That sounds like a lot. And we just went through this whole huge ordeal to go down and see the whale sharks. So forget it. I canceled all of that. I canceled all of it. Unfortunately, I was able to get refund for all of it, which was excellent. And even if I wasn't able to, I was still going to be like, well, we're just not going to do that. So we were able to enjoy the rest of our time at the beautiful resort before we moved on to the next adventures. Now I'm just trying to glance through some different photos that I have here. I honestly haven't even posted that many photos of our travels. It's kind of crazy. Like it's just been a lot. So it's just been a lot. Like life got so chaotic when we got back. But yeah, okay. So that was all of Cebu. Oh gosh, the beach and the kids. Oh, they just absolutely loved it there. It was so beautiful in that resort. So if you're ever going to go to Cebu, definitely want to stay at the Shangri-La. That is the way to go. So then we got on this tiny little plane and we flew to the island of Boracay. Now, Boracay is very famous because they have this incredible, it's small, and they have this incredible, like almost like powdery, sugary sand beach. And you see the most beautiful sunsets. And it's just a gorgeous place to visit, right? However, it is a challenge to get there. It is not easy. So you have to fly there. You fly into something called Cataclan, and then you have to get on a bus, and then you have to get on a ferry boat, and then you have to get on another like van to take you to your hotel. So there's a lot of stops. Now, as a family of 4 traveling for a month, you can imagine we would have a bit of luggage, right? So we had to get all of that and on all these stops. We had a porter that was helping us. It was a lot. And unfortunately, we only had a few days on Boracay, so it just felt like a lot, but it was very beautiful. I'm glad we went. We were able to go out on a boat and watch the sunset and enjoy the gorgeous beaches, and we had some good meals there, and it was really cool. I mean, the only thing is I wish that I would have known that the transition of getting there and getting to the island and getting off of the island was so complicated. I probably would have set it up so that we would have had more time there, if that makes sense. But our accommodations were lovely, and everybody was just so wonderful while we were there. We went to another, like they have the main beach in Boracay, but then we went to another beach where they have the puka shell beach. But the puka shells are very, very tiny, so we tried to collect as many as we could, but that was still pretty cool. And then, yeah, so I think we were only in Boracay for about I don't know, like 3 days. It was really short. It was really short. And then after that, we flew to the island of Palawan, which is very famous, and you may have heard of that. Now, interestingly enough, we had a very scary experience while we were flying into Palawan. Palawan is a very kind of like a long, skinny island. There's two very popular places where people will stay. In the south, called Puerto Princesa, and in the north, called El Nido. And so our hotel was not in the town. Our hotel was on this beach that was up north from the town called oh my gosh, what was the beach? What was I can't think of the name of where we stayed. It's just slipped my mind. But anyway, so we're flying in and we're on like a propeller plane. And I don't know if you've ever been on a propeller plane before, but I certainly hadn't. And so it was apparently very windy when we were landing. It was dark, it was late at night, and the plane is flying and it's like like making all these crazy sounds as it's trying to land. And it goes down to land. We like brush the runway, and then the plane immediately goes back up in the air and like circles around. I mean, it was very scary because it was the plane was making like all these crazy rattling sounds. We didn't even know what the heck was going on. We didn't know if the plane was going to be able to land. People were freaking out. People were crying. My family, yeah, listen to this. My family decided to heckle me. I'm scared. I'm terrified. Here I am on a plane with my family. And I don't know, is it going to crash? I don't know. Well, what are they doing? What is my husband and Finley? What are they doing? They're videotaping me freaking out. And they're teasing and laughing at me. Yeah. I'm like, why aren't you guys scared? Because this is actually kind of scary. But I have to say, the flight attendants were lovely and they did not seem alarmed at all. So I thought to myself, well, maybe this is normal here. Maybe, so we did end up finding out that it's actually kind of normal. They get high winds there. And their runway is very short and they have these propeller planes. So they're very hard to control or something. And so it happens sometimes the plane isn't even able to land there and they have to go to the other airport in Puerto Princesa. And then you're like 5 hours away and you have to find a way to get up to where you're actually staying. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank gosh that did not happen. But anyway, we landed. It was fine. We had people from our resort there to pick us up, to take us to where we were staying. The place that we stayed at was actually really lovely. They arranged to have, there was only one restaurant really up there at where we were staying. And so they arranged for us to order our food so that when we got there, we had food at the restaurant because the restaurant was pretty much closed by the time we got there because it was like 10 o'clock at night. And then we had our own private little, I mean, they call it villa, but it was just like a little, it didn't have a kitchen. It had 2 levels. It had the beds upstairs and then like a little living room downstairs, and it had 2 bathrooms. So it was actually really nice. Why can I not think of the name of it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, it was great, and it was like right there by the beach, and the beach there was just gorgeous. And the kids had so much fun. Like the water was nice. They could go way out. We got to see the baby sea turtles. They have like a whole hatchery at this resort where we were staying. And so we were able to see a big release of the sea turtles. They release the sea turtles like twice a day there, which they were so cute and tiny. I'm trying to look through my photos and see and try to make sure I don't miss anything. Lots of gorgeous sunsets. And so we decided to do one adventure on Palawan, which was an island hopping tour. So you go into the town of El Nido, which is a very chaotic town, but that's where you have to go. And you board a boat and they drive you around they take you around all these little islands. And you get to experience the different special things that each of these islands have. And so that was a really cool experience. It was kind of like a day trip. And, that was our big thing while we were there in Palawan. And then it was time to move on to the last portion of the trip. And I have to say, by the time we were ready to leave the Philippines, I was really ready to leave the Philippines. Like, I am not a girl of the Philippines. After being hot and sticky and covered in sand for days on end, I was ready to move on to the rest of our trip. So we had to fly from Palawan back to Manila for one night. And then from there, we flew on to Tokyo. So once we got to the airport to fly to Tokyo a couple days later, Finley just thought we were flying to another island in the Philippines. And I said, hey, buddy, look at where does it say that we're, where does it say that this airplane is going? And he says, well, it says Tokyo. And I said, yeah, that's where we're going. He's like, oh my gosh, Tokyo, Japan. And I was like, yeah, we're going to Japan. And so he was just like, oh my God. I think he couldn't really believe it because I felt like he was going to be more excited than he was. But I feel like he just thought, like, he was in shock that we were actually going to Japan, because I don't think he really realized that it was as close to, it was as close to the Philippines as we were. So we then flew on to Japan. And let me tell you, it was a big shock because it was such a change in the culture, right? So you go from somewhere like the Philippines, which has, so much poverty, stray dogs, stray animals everywhere, which is honestly very hard to see because you want to help the stray animals, but there's so many thousands of them that what can you do? I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to give this one water? Are you going to give this one food? How are you going to help these ones over here that look injured or they have skin issues or, whatever. I mean, it was so hard to see, to be honest. It was very hard to see and experience. But then we fly into Japan and, there was a huge learning curve because all of a sudden you're in the Philippines where most people actually they speak Tagalog or whatever dialect that they speak, but they also speak English. And John could speak Tagalog. So that was very helpful, right? So we had no issues communicating and getting around. We get to Japan, and yes, some people speak English, but not really. And everything is in Japanese and everybody's speaking Japanese. Of course, I mean, it's Japan. So what do you expect? So we're trying to figure out how to get on the train and how to get to our hotel. And we've got all this freaking luggage. I mean, you try to pack as light as you can, but when you're traveling with kids, they get messy easily. Their clothes get dirty easily. So we had to pack things. Plus, we were in the Philippines where the climate was hot and humid. Now we're going to Japan where it's cold and rainy. So we had to have, some diversity in the types of clothes that we packed. And I didn't want to just get to Japan and be like, well, now I have to buy all different clothes because we had limits on how heavy our baggage could be. So there were a lot of challenges. There were so many challenges that we had to overcome. But, what struck me right out the gate being in Japan is there are no stray animals. There are basically no homeless people. Everything is clean. Everything is organized. It was just very different. We went from the Philippines where we had all this space in our hotel rooms to Tokyo where your hotel is so tiny. The first hotel that we stayed at, actually we had to have 2 rooms because each room was so small that it could only accommodate 1 adult and 1 child. And the rooms, of course, were next door to each other, but they did not have linking doors. So that was interesting. The Wi-Fi there was awful. So it was hard to figure out how to get around when you have no phone access, no internet access. But Finley was absolutely over the top excited to be in Tokyo. And honestly, I was too. I just was obsessed with the fashion there, how people dress, how clean it was. Of course, it being March, the cherry blossoms were starting to bloom. They were not in full bloom, but when we parked the first night in front of our hotel, when we got dropped off by the taxi, there was this incredible, bright, vibrant pink cherry blossom. There was two or 3 of them at this park that was right across the street from the hotel. And I was just like, I had never seen a pink blossom on a tree that was that color. And it was so vibrant, even even at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. It was just like, wow. And, there's so many cool things about Japan. I really could go on. And if you've been there, we went to this place and we had these amazing, crazy pancakes that were so different than the ones that they have, here traditionally. They were so fluffy and light and they're made out of egg whites. And let me see, we stayed in the area called Shibuya. And, we had to go and check out all the cutesy shops and we had to get all of our knickknacks and go to the Sanrio store, which was like a whole moment for me because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Sanrio, Hello Kitty, Kuropi, all of the things. And quick side tangent, when I was a kid, I lived in a small town outside of Omaha, and my dad on the weekends, not every weekend, but occasionally he would drive me to Omaha, and there was a store at the mall called It's Small World, and they had a very small like kiosk thing in the center of the store that had the Sanrio stuff, and it wasn't that much stuff, and I would painstakingly pick one pencil for my pencil box or one eraser or whatever, and I had these very special, me and my best friend at the time, we had these special pencil boxes that were Sanrio, and we'd have our pencils and our erasers and like all of our stuff inside the pencil boxes, but we never could use any of it. It all had to stay pristine. And so then now here I was at like the Mecca Sanrio store. We went to the one that was in Harajuku, which, oh my gosh, if you've never been to Harajuku, it is wild. That street was so incredibly packed with people that you could barely even move. You were crushed in a mob of people. And it was terrifying because with Finley, he's so little. I was like, you cannot let go of my hand. You could get sucked up by this mob of people and I would never find you. I mean, at least with Jasper, he was in a stroller. But oh my gosh, it was just crazy how mobbed it was with people. And I don't really understand why it was like that because no other street was like that. But I guess that's a thing there. If you've been to Harajuku, you know what I'm talking about. But we were also able to go to the Capybara Cafe. The kids were obsessed with seeing the capybaras. They have all kinds of interesting cafes there in Tokyo. You can go to Owl Cafe. We walked into an Owl Cafe, but we decided not to stay. The Capybara Cafe was fun. I mean, it's not really like a cafe in a traditional sense. You go in, you pay to spend a half an hour with the capybaras. They're hilarious. You can pet them. You can see them getting in and out of the water. They get very frisky and spunky and they go flying, running all over the place. And they're very cute and they look like they're very well cared for, which is very important to me because I kind of felt like they were exploited. I kind of felt like the whale sharks were exploited too. So that was a little bit hard in my mind, but the capybaras seemed very happy. And, they had a nice place to be. So that was kind of a highlight, the Sanrio, everything in Tokyo is so cute. I couldn't get over that. Just everything is so cute. We went and found like delicious ramen, which of course the kids loved. I'm just trying to look back at the pictures. Just, oh my gosh, they just loved everything about it there. We had, for the most part, pretty nice weather. It did rain a little bit, which was okay. I'm trying to scroll through some of my photos and look at other things that we saw. We had more delicious pancakes. We did some shopping. I found this really cute tarot deck called the Kawaii Tarot, which is like a cute tarot, which I loved. We went to a park and we saw the cherry blossoms. And so after we had spent a few days in the Shibuya area, we then transitioned over to the other side of Tokyo a little ways called Ueno, and we stayed there in another hotel, which was a little bit better because the room was a little bit bigger. It was still pretty cramped, but at least we could all be in the same room, which is just easier, right? And they had a few more amenities at that hotel, and they had good internet access, which was key. But that hotel was great because it was within walking distance to a zoo. It was within walking distance to this huge park that had tons of like food trucks and drinks and outdoor entertainment and a Starbucks and like everything was there. And so that was really cool. And I really enjoyed that. The kids, oh my gosh, the kids absolutely loved it there. Let's see here. I'm trying to look back at what else. So that was a lot of fun. We did end up going to Tokyo Disneyland. So the day that we chose for that, it turned out great because it was not rainy that day. But John decided to turn into a drill sergeant the moment that we got to the park. And he was so focused on getting us on every single dang ride that he was just like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like we barely even had anything to eat the whole day. We were there for like, pretty much not quite from open, but definitely all the way to close. And, for anyone that hasn't been to the Tokyo Disneyland, I would say for me, I think the Disneyland in California is better. But we also didn't, they have what's called Disneyland Sea, which is kind of like our California Adventure, which we didn't go to. We only had one day. So the Tokyo Disneyland, I mean, it's similar. There are some rides that are different. They still have Splash Mountain, whereas we have Tiana. We have the Tiana ride now, but it's similar. Even Little Jasper, they allowed Jasper to go on Splash Mountain, and I was kind of surprised because it has that huge drop at the end, and Jasper thought that was absolutely the best. But it was a very, very long day. It was a very long day with no eating, and we were all absolutely dead tired at the end of the day. And I was like, John, actually, that really wasn't all that fun because you had us going so hard the whole day. The kids were melting down. Finley was in a crappy mood. Oh my gosh, the amount of meltdowns that we went through that day were just next level. But we went through it, and the kids seemed to say they had a great time, even though it seemed like they really weren't having that great of a time. I know I was not having the best time. But oh my gosh, you know what? At the end of it, I'm like, you know what? We did it. We did it. Let's see, what else? Yeah, we went to the zoo. We saw some temples, lots of ramen, lots of sushi, lots of the kids jumping from one bed to the next in the hotel. And I think that was about it. Yeah. So, I mean, that was, there was a lot. There was a lot that happened. I'm trying to give like a high level overview of this travel. But at the end of it, my big takeaways are I am extremely grateful, number one, that we had the opportunity to go, that we had the opportunity to spend a month away as a family, that we had the opportunity to experience all these things, to see different cultures, to actually learn quite a bit of gratitude for what we have at home. I have never been so happy to get home. I mean, to get in my own bed, to be around my own things, to just have the comforts and luxuries of the ease with which us as Americans are able to live our lives. We don't even realize, I think, how easy we have it. When you go somewhere where they have such limited resources, they don't really have grocery stores like we do. I mean, in the Philippines, I went into places, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is their grocery store? Wow. Wow. I mean, there's like no choices, and the choices that they do have are terrible. Just the modern amenities, how easy it is for us to just get in a car and drive around. And I mean, maybe not if you live in a big city, but it was just a lot. It was a huge learning opportunity. And I think as much as it was a challenge to spend day in and day out with my children, the meltdowns, the chaos, the transitions, like I can't get that back. Those are memories that even I think little Jasper as a 3.5-year-old could potentially carry with him. And certainly Finley, he's at a very impressionable age. And so to have those moments and to have that time, that one-on-one time, life at home is very chaotic. My husband and I, we work full time. I've got the podcast 2 episodes a week. He's got his whole real estate investing business, which is like a second full-time job on top of his regular job as well. The kids are in activities, school. Life is really chaotic. And so to have that time was very precious. And, I try to keep that in mind because the trip was extremely exhausting. And coming home, flying back and getting back into a routine took like 2 weeks because there was a 16-hour time difference between Tokyo and California where we live. And so that transition was extremely challenging for the kids. I mean, I probably could have readjusted pretty quickly, but the kids were up all night, waking up, not wanting to sleep, feeling so dysregulated, trying to get back into the swing of school and work. It was very, very difficult. And so I know personally that I really have no desire to go back to that part of the country. not part of the country, part of the world for a while, at least until the kids are older, because that was a real struggle. But overall, I think it was an incredible trip. It was an incredible opportunity. We were in so many, I felt like we were in such a state of transition and liminality the entire time. It really was magical. It was a really big opportunity to take yourself out of your regular day-to-day life and just be in the moment and be present, because there were so many issues with access to internet, and you couldn't be on your phone all the time. You couldn't you had to just be in the moment, right? You had to be present at the beach with your kids playing in the sand. And that means so much to me. And I know it means a lot to my husband too. And it was so interesting seeing the kids in the Philippines. Like, you could tell that they truly felt at home there. Like, that is their culture, right? That's in their blood. That's in their genetics. And you could see how they felt. I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. Like, it was definitely different than how I felt. They were adventurous on trying the food. They were adventurous on doing all of the things. And, having them get to see their culture is priceless. It really is. So I can't say that I need to go back to the Philippines anytime in the near future. I probably would love to go back to Japan, because we only got to experience Tokyo, and there's so many parts of the country that I would love to see, but certainly not in the next few years. But yeah, so if you're going on a trip to the Philippines and you're from the US and you don't have any Filipino ties, hit me up. I can give you my recommendations after what we experienced, because it was definitely a big learning curve. It was a large learning curve. And there are a lot of things that if I would go back now, I would know how to do them different again. But, at the end of the day, I think travel is a magical experience. And you don't have to fly to the other side of the world to have travel be a magical experience. You don't have to go anywhere super far away. Maybe you just drive somewhere that's like 2 hours away and you could have a totally incredible experience. For me right now, I'm in Portland. It was only an hour and 20 minutes to fly here, but it feels like a totally different kind of place. And so for me, travel is a big part of my life, and I think it is a big part of my spiritual practice to experience all these different things and meet different people and learn different cultures. Growing up, we didn't travel like this. Growing up, we just pretty much went to my grandparents' cabin at the lake every year. That was it, and my children have such a different life experience. I don't know if that's for the better, or am I just turning them into spoiled brats? I could be. It's very possible. It's very possible that they're just turning into spoiled, rotten brats. But I try to make sure that we have conversations. Especially with my 9-year-old. My 3-year-old, it's a little bit harder. But especially with my 9-year-old, have conversations about the things that we're experiencing when we're on our trips. And then to have that gratitude and talk about how happy we are when we are home. Even little Jasper, when we got home that first day, he told me that he was so happy and that he didn't want to go anywhere ever again. And pretty much for the past month, every time that I'm like, oh, buddy, we need to go here or there. No, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave the house. He has a deep appreciation for being home and having that sense of home. And, I do too. So I guess that's a wrap on the Philippines and Japan. I'm looking ahead at this month. I have an astrocartographer coming on. I have also, I did a deep dive all about Filipino folklore, which is so fascinating. Even if you don't know anything about Filipino culture, the folklore is insane. So it's definitely going to be worth a listen. I think that'll be coming out the following week. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. I would love to hear about you all's travel experiences too. So anyway, that's a wrap. I need to go chill out for a little bit because we need to have dinner. And I think there's some sort of ritual tonight. And I don't know. Once I get back from this trip, I have no plans for the next 2 months. And I am so excited to have no plans for 2 months until we go visit my family in Nebraska in July. It will be so good to spend every weekend at my home working on my home design project, which is taking forever because I am never home, and working on the podcast and working on all these things that I am so excited about, but are very challenging. So they're very challenging when you're constantly on the move. Anyway, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to this, enjoyed listening to me ramble about this travel experience. It was quite a trip, and I'm going to try to post some pictures now that I'm back on social media. I'm going to try to post some pictures and highlights of our travel experience, and also pictures that were the more challenging things to see, because I think it's good for people to see those things too. So anyway, stay magical, friends. Bye. Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me in helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.